To actually have a reputable brand, they need to make sure that they can showcase to clients, right? These are the kind of, so if you actually have a related, I would say background in a certain industry, it also justifies projects. But, because Taipei is,
I'm from NSF. The thing I want to ask you is Unlearning.
Yeah.
So for the viewers.
Yeah, and that's when you know that, you're under actually, or you're actually learning what's needed to
Great, thanks. 皆さんこんにちは、コンサルキャリアです。今日もですね、元マッキンゼーのクリスさんに来ていただいております。で、前回の動画では台湾出身でリンクトイン、インシアード、そこからマッキンゼーっていうそのキャリアを聞いたんですが、今日はですね、マッキンゼーでどんな仕事をしていたかとか、戦略コンサルってどういう感じなのかっていうのを深掘りしたいというふうに思います。So once again, thank you very much for your time, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you joined in the Taipei office.
Taipei,
right?
yes.
When was that?
It was 2018 October. Yeah, I graduated from my MBA in July, and then I took 2 to 3 months break.
Right.
Getting myself prepared for the intense life.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was your title? Was it associate?
So I joined as an associate. I think that's the title given to MBA if you are from the recognized schools. I think McKinsey maintains a list of schools that are, I think, for example, the US M7s and plus some others, and also I think in Europe, a few renowned schools.
Right.
Yeah, if you join, then I think you start as an associate.
As an associate.
But unfortunately, if you are not from the targeted schools, I think you will join as a
Senior BA, something like that.
yeah, something like I forgot the title, but I think there is actually I forgot the title. Yeah, but it was like, it's between like BA and associate.
Yes, right.
Yes, yeah, you will start that. With
Okay,
that.
so you worked at McKinsey as associate.
Yes.
So what was it like to work at McKinsey Taipei office or
Yes,
China office or Japan office, wherever?
Yeah, I think the work really depends on what kind of projects that you are assigned to, right? And I think McKinsey right now, they not only do strategy projects. For example, a big portion of the projects are actually long-term implementation projects.
Yes.
Right? So depending on the kind of project that you are on, the life will be a little different. And I had the opportunity to be both of them. Yeah, but most of my projects were consulting projects or strategy projects. So I think in a strategy project setting, of course, usually it's a bit shorter. It ranges from, I guess, 2 to 3 months. Sometimes even shorter one can only be just 1 month. And then you are usually asked to solve a particular problem. And the problem usually is very big, right? It could actually impact the company's operation. It could impact the company's goals in the next, 3 to 5 years, for example. And you are basically asked to come up with a solution, right? And of course, I think usually it starts with a kickoff.
Before that, I just want to be crystal clear over here, but the work you conducted was not related to, programming or computer science. Not at all,
not
right?
At all, yes.
So it's not the work that done by Accenture.
No,
not at all.
Right. Yeah, even on implementation projects, my understanding is we work with clients, we try to implement the changes. Usually it's about, I think, what is that word? Like change operation?
Yes.
Yeah, usually it's about that.
Change management.
Change management, exactly. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. But you rarely actually, gets to do like real implementation work. For example, helping them to write a system or helping them to create some new products. Yeah, those kind of work, I think right now McKinsey can also do that, but they, I think, prefer to actually outsource it to specialized companies that are doing that. Yeah, so I think as consultants, your time is very valuable. Yeah, you're usually asked to do more high-level work that can make bigger impact within a fairly short amount of time.
So you joined McKinsey. You didn't join McKinsey directly after graduation, right? You went to LinkedIn. You went to INSEAD.
Yeah.
So what were the advantages of your past experience compared to those who joined McKinsey right after
Yes. Yeah.
undergrad?
I think that's actually a very good question. And as I think everybody probably knows, right? They used to prefer more like fresh graduates. Right, coming out of college, right? Because they feel like they are like a white piece of papers that are not polluted, and then McKinsey can train them the way they want. But then actually over the few years, I realized McKinsey starts to put more and more focus on hiring the experienced
candidates.
Yeah, and then the experienced candidates actually, they realize that, by obtaining or by having, related industry knowledge, it actually helps McKinsey to basically improve their credibility as well, right? Because I think everybody knows that McKinsey is a place, or not only McKinsey, but all the big consulting firms, they usually want people from all over the backgrounds, right? And then so that they can call themselves the experts, in every industry, right? So in order to actually have a reputable brand, they need to make sure that they can showcase to clients, right? These are the kind of people that we have. And these people who used to work in these kind of companies who have like the latest technology or latest industry trend. And then that can help to solve your problem. Right. So by actually coming from a technology background, sometimes they actually would like to promote my previous background, right? Showing to the clients that, this person actually came from Silicon Valley, who actually worked with the most cutting edge technology, in these tech companies, right? So then that will also help, I think, the partners, get the contract, right, and get the,
credibility building. Right?
Yeah, it's more really about the reputation.
Right.
Yeah, and on the other hand, because McKinsey deals with so many different projects, right? So if you actually have a related, I would say background in a certain industry, it also justifies you being assigned to these projects. Because then, as an experienced hire coming from MBA, sometimes, the project assignment will, so there are actually a team of, in McKinsey we call them PD, professional development, right? Basically, they will look at your profile and decide what projects you should be, right? And then your past experience becomes a very important indicator.
Right.
So I would say, it definitely helps me to get, to the right projects that I'm more interested in, but also I, at the same time, can make bigger impacts. So I think that's of course, there are pros and cons, right? Because then if you're actually coming from a less, common background, or if your background is actually not what this office typically does. For example, in Taiwan, we don't really have any oil industry projects, right? Because then we are not like an oil producing, country, right? So if you're actually coming from that background, you might actually find yourself harder to be on the projects. But, because Taipei is also part of the Greater China office, right? And then China has all different kind of projects. Yeah, so I think they will definitely make sure they find a project that matches your skills.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to make the viewers feel worried, but so I want to put this, but I'm from Benesse with education background, and as you know, in Japan office there are literally a few projects related to education, right? So for the first maybe few months, I struggled to find good studies where I can perform well, but gradually I learned new knowledge. And I got used to, various industries from automotive to telecommunication to healthcare. So it's good to have, experience like you, but at the same time, it's also possible to survive and thrive at McKinsey, even if you have, such a, rare background like education or oil, as you said.
Yeah, and then actually, I think I was only mentioning on the hard skills, right? But I think soft skills is another very important thing.
That's a good point.
McKinsey, considers, right? Because by knowing that you have worked in other industries and in the real work settings, they usually have a lot more trust in you dealing with clients because they know that you possess the abilities of a decent right? And a lot of students coming out of college, they don't really know how to stand in front of clients, right? They don't really know how to behave professionally.
How to exchange meshi in Japanese culture, for example.
Right. So I think that also can bring a lot of credibility. Yeah, knowing that you are coming from a previous, usually I guess people coming into McKinsey comes from good corporates, right? Good companies, good, leading corporations, right? That itself speaks, to the, reputation.
Yes, I hear you. Yeah. So credibility, you can bring your past experience to the firm, and also, as you said, decent.
Yes, decency, soft skill. I think that's also very important. Yeah.
So if we focus on tech aspect, like yourself, you have programming experience, and I think some of the viewers are also writing code every day, and they want to transit their career from writing a code to strategy, right?
Yeah.
So were there any specific, advantages, like how you were able to, utilize your programming experience to McKinsey, if ever?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think my short answer is yes, it definitely helps, because then these two topics are seemingly very far away from each other, right? Like writing code versus solving strategy problems. But then once you get into the actual strategy project, you'll realize a lot of the, I wouldn't say a lot of, I would say even all of them are data-based, right? Like yes, when we actually try to find a answer coming out of, so many uncertainties, right? They are things that we need to make sure that are certain, right? And then those certainty are usually very data-driven, very data-based, right? And that's when I find my when I find my engineering or analytical background to be very helpful. Because when I think of things, I can always think from an analytical perspective, right? In order to understand this, I need to get this kind of data ready, and I need to perform this kind of analysis so that I can reach this conclusion. I think that thinking process is actually something that engineers are very good at, yes. So the only thing I had to understand is how to bridge, right, my analytical skills to the actual strategy, decision making. Yeah, but definitely I find myself a lot more at ease when dealing with data, when dealing with complicated, computations, or even when actually creating Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I would find myself not struggling with these complicated formulas, because then, we deal with a way more complicated, like technology or even like, computer-related programs in the past.
So the work you do as a software engineer is a good training
Definitely.
to become a strategy consultant
Definitely.
in the future.
Yes. Yeah. So I think depending really on, I think that's actually what makes McKinsey or like a strategy consulting firm attractive, right? Because depending on which kind of background you are, you can definitely find yourself shine in certain parts of the value chain.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then these consulting companies provide you with a very good platform so that you can, while you contribute, while you become and while you give output to your class, to your fellow colleagues in the part that you are shining, you're also learning from them in the part that you are maybe less advantaged at, right? And that's what makes a team stronger. Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask you is unlearning.
Yeah.
So for the viewers who are not familiar with unlearning is, you to perform as a strategy consultant, you have to forget your past experience to some extent and then learn new things. That's what we call unlearning. But so you have software engineer background. What did you unlearn?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very interesting question, right? For me, I remember the struggling I had when joining McKinsey, as I'm pretty good at analyticals, right? I'm good at like data, like driven, I would say, technologies, or I'm good at this kind of, analysis. Less, I would say, competent in like structuring the problem. Yeah, so I think that's the first thing that I really need to unlearn, right? Like, yes, you're given a problem that's actually very big. Right? But then how do you actually break down into things that are solvable, that you can start utilizing data, right? So like the way to approach this kind of like vagueness, right, is something that I was not really used to. Yeah. So at that time, I remember a few times that I, jump into conclusions too soon, right? Without actually thinking like through things thoroughly. Because then I think in the engineering setting, you're always given the, maybe the final output already, right? And then you need to find ways to
define
exactly.
Just there.
Exactly,
right?
Yes. But then I think in a strategy project, a lot of times your clients doesn't know.
Right.
Like they don't know what they don't know.
And it changes a lot, right?
Exactly.
Time to time problems change.
So a lot of times you are actually defining what problems to solve for. Yeah, and that's not something that I would say, me as an engineer would know how to do.
How did you overcome that problem?
Yeah, I think, of course, I realized that some of my thinking process were probably not, very effective. So I basically, of course, you can learn from your senior colleagues or learn from your engagement managers.
Right.
Right. And then I think a lot of times, you can learn a lot even directly from partners. I think partners, they can become partners, definitely because they, have possessed the right skills, right? I've seen a lot of, very, very competent partners, who come at the meeting, who can spend just maybe 30 minutes, and then the questions are defined.
Yes.
Right. So I think those are the kind of things that I observe a lot, and I try to put myself in the process. Yeah. But of course, I think your manager and also your colleagues are your best supports, right? So knowing that you are from a MBA background, they actually don't expect you to have all the consulting skill sets. So I remember just everything, when I see, when I observe, if it's not something that I'm used to, I need to make sure that I get used to it, right? And then maybe in the next setting, when I get chance, I try to interpret it in my own ways, right? And I validate with my colleagues, validate with my manager, right? And you'll feel like your thinking process starts to sync, with how a good management consulting does. Yeah, and that's when you know that your Unlearn actually works.
Right.
Now you're actually learning what's needed to be a good consultant.
Yeah, great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris. ということで今日動画の2本目はですね、クリスからマッキンゼーでどういうふうにサバイブしてきたかとか、特に最後のアンラーニングの話とかはどこのファームに行っても絶対につきまとう問題だと思うので、すごく皆さんに参考になったんじゃないかなと思います。はい、ということでこの動画見ていただいて、もっと詳しく話を聞いてみたい、キャリアの相談をしたいという方はですね、YouTube の概要欄から LINE の追加をしていただいて気軽にメッセージいただければと思います。はい、ではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。See you.